First, I want to say thank you to the subscribers I have got the last 6 months. It means the world to me. My goal is to one day have millions of subscribers who love to hear my stories. So please, if you watch my channel and enjoy these horror stories, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now enough of that shit. Let's get in it. Happy Halloween from Tales from the Fiend. Halloween is a night of shadows where the familiar becomes strange and the air itself seems heavier, as if the world were holding its breath. For most, it is a night of candy, costumes, and laughter. But for some, it is a night when the veil between the living and the dead grows thin. A night when things unseen can slip through. These are 10 true accounts of supernatural encounters on Halloween night, stories of people who saw what should not be seen, heard what should not be heard, and lived to tell the tale. Or at least, most of them did. 1. The Hollow Road. The Headless Horseman returns. It was Halloween night, 1998, in rural Pennsylvania. A man named Daniel was driving home from a late shift, cutting through an old road locals called the Hollow. His family had warned him never to drive it after midnight, especially near Halloween, but Daniel wasn't the type to believe in ghost stories. The road was narrow, twisting through woods older than the town itself. As he drove, fog began to pour across the asphalt, so thick his high beams turned it into a glowing wall. His radio flickered, then went silent. That's when he heard it, the sound of hooves. At first he thought it was his imagination, but the rhythm grew louder, closer, echoing through the fog. When he looked in his rearview mirror, he saw something moving. A massive black horse galloping straight down the center of the road. The rider was cloaked in shadow, but where its head should have been, there was nothing. Daniel slammed the gas, heart racing, but the horse kept pace, its hooves striking sparks against the pavement. Then the rider lifted something from his saddle, a pumpkin, glowing from within with a fire that was not from this world. As Daniel swerved around a bend, the fog suddenly vanished. The road was clear, no horse, no rider. But when he got home, there was something stuck in the grill of his truck, a small shard of scorched pumpkin, still warm to the touch. Daniel never drove through the hollow again. And to this day, locals say the Headless Horseman still rides that stretch of road every Halloween, searching for a head to replace his own. 2. The Thing in the Cornfield. In 2007, 3 teenagers from Iowa decided to spend Halloween night in an abandoned farmhouse surrounded by miles of empty cornfield. It was a local dare. Stay until midnight and record proof of the ghost that supposedly haunted the property. As they explored the rotting house, they heard whispers outside, soft at first, like wind through the stalks, then clearer, more human. When they looked out the window, they saw a figure standing at the edge of the cornfield. It was tall, too tall, its head nearly brushing the hanging branches. One of them shined a flashlight, and for a moment they saw it clearly. A human shape wrapped in corn husks and barbed wire, its face hidden behind a carved pumpkin that seemed to move, twisting as if it were alive. They bolted for the door, but the flashlight cut out. The boy holding the camera tripped, and when the others turned back, he was gone. They found him an hour later, wandering out of the field, covered in scratches, eyes wide, unblinking. He never spoke again. The only thing the camera recorded was the sound of his own breathing, and a single whisper caught on tape. Harvest time. 3. The Halloween Séance. In 1974, a college group in Massachusetts held a séance in an abandoned dorm rumored to be haunted by a student who had hanged herself decades earlier. They didn't take it seriously. It was meant to be a Halloween stunt for laughs. But when the candles flickered and the planchette began to move on its own, the laughter stopped. The glass spelled out one word: stay. One girl screamed that she felt hands grabbing her shoulders. The door slammed shut, trapping them in total darkness. They heard footsteps circling the room, slow and deliberate. When they finally forced the door open, every candle was blown out, except one. On the wall, written in soot, were the words, "You called me." Later that night, one of the students, the same girl who'd been touched, was found standing outside the building at 3 a.m., staring at the window of the room they'd used. She said she could see herself inside, smiling and waving back. 4. The Shadow at the Window. In 1991, a woman named Clara moved into an old farmhouse in Ohio with her husband and young son. The house had stood empty for decades, but it was cheap, and they wanted a quiet Halloween weekend to themselves. The first night, their son came running into their room, terrified. He said there was someone standing outside his window. Clara's husband checked, but found only footprints in the mud, large, heavy prints that stopped right beneath the window and didn't turn back. The next night, it happened again. This time, Clara saw it too. A tall, thin figure standing just beyond the glass, its face pale and featureless. When she screamed, the thing didn't move. It just tilted its head, watching. They called the sheriff, but no one was found. On Halloween night, they decided to leave. As they packed, Clara heard tapping on the window again. Slow, deliberate knocks that spelled out 3 letters, L-E-T. When she turned to look, the window was fogged over from the inside. The next morning, they left and never went back. 5. The Church on Old Mill Road. There's an abandoned church outside of Salem, Massachusetts, where people say the dead still gather on Halloween night. In 1983, a group of paranormal investigators broke in to spend the night inside. At first, it was quiet, cold, but still. Around midnight, the wind began to howl, and the old church bell, long since broken, rang out on its own. The sound echoed through the empty building. They turned on their recorders and began asking questions. One man asked, "Who's here with us?" The response came not from their equipment, but from the darkness above them, a deep, echoing voice that said, "All of us." Their cameras captured something impossible. Faint silhouettes standing in the pews, dozens of them, motionless, watching. Then, one by one, the shapes began to turn toward the investigators. When they fled the building, the last thing they saw was the church door slamming shut by itself, sealing them out. The next morning, when they reviewed the footage, every single frame from the moment the bell rang was blank, replaced by static, but the audio remained, and faintly beneath the static you can still hear the bell tolling. 6. The Devil's Mask. In 1989, a costume shop owner in Louisiana purchased a box of vintage Halloween masks from an estate auction. Among them was a mask unlike any other, a deep crimson face with cracked leather horns and hollow eyes that seemed almost alive. Its weight was unsettling, and the faint smell of something burnt clung to it. That night, the shop owner decided to try it on as a joke. As he pressed it to his face, the mask seemed to pulse, tightening slightly as though it were breathing. Laughter bubbled up in his throat, unnatural and wrong. He tried to remove it, but his fingers wouldn't move. The mask had latched to his skin, cold and suffocating. Hours passed. His screams echoed through the empty shop, but nobody came. The windows fogged from within, concealing the flickering candlelight he had placed on the counter. When the police arrived the next morning, the shop was silent. The mask sat neatly on the counter as if nothing had happened. The man was gone. Employees who returned weeks later reported hearing whispering behind the counter whenever the mask was on display. Some swear they've seen the mask twitch on its own, the red horns shifting slightly as if it were searching for its next victim. 7. The House That Burned Every Year. In a small Tennessee town, there's a house that catches fire every Halloween. Every year, at exactly midnight, flames erupt from the walls as if the house itself remembers the tragedy that once claimed the lives of a family in 1954. Firefighters have tried countless times to prevent it, but every attempt fails. One year, a man named Peter decided to witness it himself. He camped on the hill overlooking the house, shivering in the cold autumn air. At midnight, flames ignited without a spark or source. Shadows began dancing inside the fiery windows, indistinct figures raising glasses and laughing. He could hear their voices faintly, singing a tune he had never known, yet it felt familiar, as if it belonged to some ancestral memory. Peter blinked. The fire vanished instantly, leaving the house standing, cold and unburned, as though the flames had only existed for him. He tried to leave, but he swore he could still hear laughter echoing in his ears for days afterward. When the locals heard his story, they only shook their heads. "You saw them," they said. "The family still celebrates Halloween, inside their house, among the flames." 8. The Black-Eyed Trick-or-Treaters. A woman named Evelyn was home alone one Halloween night in Oregon handing out candy to children. When 2 young trick-or-treaters appeared, she noticed immediately that their eyes were pitch black. No whites, no pupils, just darkness. Their small faces were pale, almost translucent, and their smiles too wide for children. They asked if they could come inside. Something in their tone made her stomach twist. She refused, and they tilted their heads unnaturally, whispering in unison, "We'll see you soon." The next morning, every jack-o'-lantern on her porch had been smashed, except for one she had carved herself. Its face resembled a child's, perfectly proportioned, but its eyes were as black as the trick-or-treaters. Evelyn tried to dispose of it, but it reappeared the next night. Every Halloween after, she hears faint scratching at the windows and small footsteps on the porch, and the black-eyed children always leave one carved pumpkin behind, staring silently, waiting. 9. The Mirror Ritual. In 2001, a group of teenagers dared each other to perform a Halloween ritual they had found online. The instructions were simple. Stand in front of a mirror at midnight, light a single candle, and whisper your full name backward 3 times. It was meant as a joke, a test of courage. But what followed was no joke. The boy holding the camera felt an icy presence behind him. When he turned, there was nothing. But his reflection in the mirror did not move. Slowly, the reflection smiled, showing sharp teeth that weren't his own. The candle flickered violently, casting elongated shadows across the walls. A week later, he was found dead in his bedroom, the mirror shattered from the inside. His friends reported that the shards of glass had tiny, faint scratches forming words, as though someone, or something, had been writing from the other side, "I am still here." Years later, anyone who dared perform the ritual in that same house claims the same thing. The reflection lingers after you leave, smiling when you cannot see it and whispering your name in the darkness. 10. The Voices Beneath the Cemetery. In upstate New York, there's a cemetery built atop a collapsed mine. Locals have long warned that on Halloween night, if you press your ear to the ground, you can hear whispers, the voices of the dead, crying, laughing, or calling your name. In 2012, a team of ghost hunters set out to document the phenomenon. At first, they heard nothing but the wind rustling through dead leaves. As midnight approached, a voice called one of the team members by name. Another whispered, "Come down." They pressed their microphones to the soil. The deeper they listened, the louder the voices became, now joined by a rhythmic pounding, like something clawing its way from the darkness below. One of the team panicked and ran, screaming, but another was drawn closer, kneeling by the soil, whispering their own name back to the ground. The gravekeeper arrived at dawn to find the team's equipment destroyed. Some of the hunters were missing, others found wandering, muttering in languages they didn't know. Those who survived refused to ever set foot in that cemetery again. And every Halloween, locals swear they can hear faint scratching and voices beneath the earth, calling from the darkness, waiting for anyone foolish enough to listen. Halloween is not just a night of fun. It is a night when shadows lengthen, when the air grows heavy, when the unseen stirs. These stories are warnings, whispers from those who've crossed too close to the veil, faces glimpsed in darkness, voices calling from places they should not. Lock your doors, blow out your candles, like and subscribe to this channel. And remember this, on Halloween night, some things don't just hide in the dark, they hunt.